Hello, and welcome to another episode of MetalCast from MetalCoffeeShop. I'm your host, Karen Edwards, and today we are going to be talking about Sherwin-Williams emulate architectural metal coatings. And these things are just one of the coolest things that I have seen come out recently. And I've got the experts here, Brynn Wildenaur and Kiki Redhead, and we're going to do a deep dive on this topic today. But before we do, let's get started with introductions. Maybe, Brynn, could you introduce yourself and tell us what your role is there at Sherwin-Williams?
Yeah, so I am the architectural color designer for the coil coating business at Sherwin. So I work on new product development, also color collections for internal use for color cards and things like Emulate, but also for customers as well. And then along with that, we do a lot of trend research and trend forecasting here at the design house.
Excellent. And Kiki, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm the global manager of color, materials, finishes, and trends. And I manage the design house and all the designers that specialize in different areas of expertise, particularly here in this case with Brynn on the architectural and coil coating side of the business. And yeah, I mean, I think Brynn explained it really well. We do a lot of development of colors, ideation of colors and materials, and we work on developing new collections so that we can inspire our customers with ideas for how to apply colors to architecture.
You know, Brynn and Kiki were here with Heidi Ellsworth on an episode of Roofing Road Trips, and they really explored the how it comes about. So I would recommend heading on over to that episode if you want to hear the research, the data, the picking up samples, that everything that goes into developing these lines. It really is amazing and impressive. And if you don't know, the Emulate architectural metal coatings really mimic nature, right? We've got 3 different collections. We've got wood, we've got stone, and we've got metal. So we're going to explore those today on this episode because each of these collections has 4 patterns. So let's get started with wood. Who wants to kick that off?
I can start. So we really started with where the market is at right now, with where the woods are living in the market. And our biggest kind of motivator with the wood collection is to inspire people to think a little bit outside the box, because we see wood as a building product very commonly and very frequently. So we wanted to kind of push the boundaries, but also have some more safe and traditional options. So we started with the oak, and then we moved into the walnut, which we see those pretty commonly. And, you know, and they can be very flexible options, but we pushed the envelope with the colorways. And that's where we really focused on our specialty, was really playing with the colorways and making some options that kind of push the boundaries of maybe where most people are comfortable. And then we also did a burl, which is more of an exotic type pattern, which we designed in-house, which is pretty cool and unique. And that has a lot of opportunity for different profiles, different options for end use. It could be very high end. It could look pretty rustic. And then the last one in the wood collection is a barn board. And that's pretty self-explanatory, but it has a lot of great depth, balance of warm and cool colors, and looks really fantastic when it's planked out into boards. And Kiki, please add anything.
Yeah. I think one of the unique elements here is that because these are multi-layered, you're getting this pattern, but it doesn't look flat. It really creates that depth with the multi-layers. So there could be 2 layers, there could be 3 layers, and that creates this added extra interest of almost, when you're looking at from far away, you would think that it's textural and you might want to reach out and touch it. And they're like, oh, that's smooth. But it looks like these different wood grains and these different species of woods. And then taking that grain pattern and switching up the colorways. And this can be a really difficult task of figuring out how to put these colors together to really make it look like oak, like an English oak, or to make it look like a golden oak or a red oak. And, you know, how do you get that colorway if you're looking for a specific tone within a wood species? And so that's kind of where Brynn and I really curated these different wood combinations of colors to create those both traditional and then, like Brynn said, some kind of out of the box wood grains and patterns on that as well. So having the opportunity to really focus on how these colors are going to mix and mingle when they're applied to, the same profile or the same, siding design, whether it's like a linear or a vertical type application, and how that wood grain is going to translate with multiple colors as part of the visual effect.
So when you say layers, is that like printed layers, right? And that's where you get the variations.
Yes.
Yeah, so these are printed through a rotogravure print process. So it goes through the coil line in a couple of unique ways. So you have the primer and then the color coat, and then it goes through a process where there is a ink layer, we'll call it, where there is a cylinder with small cells carved out of it that pick up ink and then drop it down onto the color coat of the coil. And then it gets a clear coat on top most frequently. So it goes through a very unique process through the coil line, and then it can be formed into many different panel options, which makes it really unique and gives a variety of options as to what the end use can be. So we wanted to make sure we hit the mark on lots of different application and end uses.
Yeah.
So you'll see these wood applications in, everything from light commercial to, something like a barn board would look fantastic paired with, the barn dominium style of residential, or even in agricultural type buildings. So we have that mix of the different wood looks. Something like a walnut looks fantastic with the whole kind of more modern, or even a nod back to mid-century modern. So you get a little bit of maybe a historic feel or a nostalgic feel, but then you can also make it look really contemporary for today, especially when you start seeing some of the different colorways that we've come up with to represent each of these species.
Wow. So yeah, wood is beautiful, right? There's so many variations and styles and different types of wood, but inherently it doesn't last as long, right? It's not as durable. And so you're providing that same beauty and that same look, but with the durability. And I want to talk a little bit more about that, but I want to get through the other types first, and then we'll talk a little bit about performance and durability and testing. So let's move on to stone. Tell us a little bit about that one.
So the stones were kind of an interesting one. We went back and forth a lot with all of the different sales teams and members that were stakeholders in this project on our end, because there were lots of different opinions on who would want the stones. Would it be high-end architects? Would it be people, building barn dominiums and more agricultural structures? Would it be residential homes? And Kiki and I were like, why can't it be everybody? So we really played around a lot with, where do micas, some sort of sparkle fit in here? Where do, maybe more of a concrete look? We talked a lot about that sort of trend, again, with the durability and the great benefits of our coatings come in, but mimicking concrete, there's a lot of benefits to that. So we wanted to make sure that we hit the mark for all of our different stakeholders without having an overwhelming selection. So in the stone collection, we have a marble that has some fantastic colorways, including a mica option. We've got a travertine, which has a couple extra layers into it. So it's got a lot of great depth. And again, that color balance, we worked really hard on making sure that it hit the mark. And it's one of those that looks like it could be replicating a couple different types of natural materials. So it's kind of open for interpretation, but a really beautiful material. And then we've got a travertine, and then we also have the concrete. So we've got sort of different interpretations on every avenue within the stone collection.
Yeah, and I want to expand a little bit on kind of what Brynn was talking about, using some of these patterns and customizing or changing up. We've obviously worked very diligently on creating colorways that represent a mimicry of the specific type of stone that we're trying to emulate. And the idea here, though, is that these are inspirational, right? So with what Brynn had mentioned about, we're not only mimicking with the travertine, traditional Italian travertine marble, but you could also take this, customize the colors, say, hey, I want to do this base and these two top colors because I want to make this look, more like a stone with like a terracotta type stone. And so I want to do the rusty reds, and I want to bring in an orange, and I want to maybe bring in a copper with a mica in it. So you get that sparkle. When you think about going to a stone yard, which was one of the most fun aspects about doing this collection, was all the fun places we got to go out and have boots on the ground, trade shows, stone yards, lumber yards, you name it, we went there to go check things out. And with the stone yards, and you'd go outside, and on a sunny day, you'd see all the slabs of stone out there, and you'd see that mica in the natural stone kind of shimmering back at you. And so both in our marble look and in our travertine pattern, we incorporated some of that as well. And so both in our colorways that we have developed and that we're showcasing in our brochure that goes along with the program and on the website, then also there's options for customization and being able to bring in mica with those looks as well.
And
Wow.
one thing I'll also add on to there is, like, for the terrazzo specifically, we typically see that as a flooring material, right? So we wanted to reimagine that. We knew that it was really important to include that in the collection as it becomes more and more popular in the industry. But where we envisioned it was walls and ceilings, in exterior walls, interior walls, and ceilings, which I think is really a unique way of looking at that material against where it's traditionally used. So we wanted to showcase some application images and really inspire people to think about it differently, even if they don't move forward with our specific colorways. This collection is really here to inspire people to think about how to, change up where their vision is and like see the possibilities behind rotogravure printing.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool because you don't think of terrazzo on a ceiling, right? It's a floor. It's always been a floor. So you're really challenging those design traditions, I guess, and inspiring people to think new and different.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So let's talk then about metal and what we have to offer there.
Yes, metal is another really fun one that we got to work on. We got to be a little bit more creative with this one, which is great. So as the design trend, Kiki and I, we're doing a lot of research all the time. But one of the areas that we've seen kind of come back up again and again over the last 6-7 years in building products specifically is perforated metal. And another one is biophilic design. And that one, again, just keeps gnawing at us, maybe in a different term, but it keeps coming back.
Define that for me, because I don't know what biophilic design
is. Kind of bringing nature into the designs. So, I mean, it's really a simple term, but you got to put a little fancy spin on it. So what we decided to do is kind of join the two together and design a faux perforated leaf pattern, which is very unique and interesting. Please go check it out on our website because it's really beautiful. And this is another place where we got a little bit creative with the colorways. We used mica in a couple of options, and really had fun being inspired by nature and the trends that we're seeing in the market, and a really unique way of using the rotogravure printing in such an unexpected way. And it turns out that it is one of the ones that catches the people's eyes most frequently to dive deeper into the collection, which I think is a great way to gauge the collection. Maybe it's not their top one that they're going to spec for a building, but it's a great eye catcher for the collection there. And then we have a couple of weathered metal options, which we're seeing is pretty standard in the market. And that is great. We wanted to include that. But again, we kind of reimagined the colorways. So taking the patina copper, sort of the rusted looks, the blackened steels, updating them to work with the trends that we're tracking every day here at the Design House to fit the trends that we're seeing for the next 5-10 years. So we wanted to make sure that we're aligned with what we're seeing in the market and where we're moving forward with. So we're staying current and forward thinking. We've got burnished slate, which is another one that, it's a little bit subtle, and that's great. We love a subtle moment, but it has a lot of depth. It's one of those that brings you in. It looks textured. It looks like natural material. And it has a lot of visual depth and a lot of visual action without being super high contrasted. And then the last one we have in the metal collection is hammered. So this one looks like somebody took a hammer to a piece of copper or a piece of steel and hammered it out. And it looks really cool and textured and has a lot of action going on, again, without being too much. So it's another one of those you want to go up and touch because it just looks so realistic without distracting from the other materials on a facade.
Wow.
One of the keys to the burnish and the hammered is, like Brynn had mentioned briefly, that low contrast. So we are really critical when we're choosing the base coating color and as we kind of put in quotes, the ink color, that semi-transparent coating that's tinted, that's going to create that pattern look, and making sure that the tone of those colors, where they sit in color space, isn't too far apart, so you're not creating a jarring look. And this can be really, really difficult for someone that doesn't have a lot of experience in the coatings and color industry, because you really have to know what's going to happen when you're going to be seeing one color through another color. And then what's going to happen when those, in certain areas where those colors are going to mix together, because someone could look at this and say, how could this only be two colors? I'm seeing like 5 or 6. And that's those areas where you're basically seeing that base, and then you're seeing that ink semi-transparent over the top. And you're going to have areas where you're going to see multiple variations of those two colors kind of mixing together. And if you've got colors that are too far apart, or they're too contrasting, or they're from opposite color families, you're going to start to create a discord in the color harmony of the combination of the colors. So subtlety in some of these is really, really key in order to create this very harmonious, mimicry type of look. And that's another term that we often use. So biophilia is kind of one of the, I'll say, interior design buzzwords right now. And if you would have asked the same question 5 or 6 years ago, it would have been biomimicry at that time. And now it's biophilia. So it's just some of these words that kind of pop up when you're talking to interior designers and architects out in the market that really have their pulse on some of the trends that are happening in design. And so we like to try to incorporate those ideas as much as possible into our designs of the patterns and the colorways, so that it will create the same sense of the visual experience that the designers and the architects are trying to create in their work.
Brynn?
I think that that's a really important part is if you have too much contrast, and the easiest example is in like the wood collection. If you have too much contrast between the base coat and that ink layer, it will start to look more artificial. And another really important part with that is that the sorry the gloss level becomes really crucial. So the higher the gloss level, it also looks more of an artificial finish rather than a low gloss, because we see that lower finish in nature in real life. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, these are just beautiful. And I'm, you mentioned all the different applications. You've mentioned interior walls, interior ceilings, exterior. What are some of the other ways that you're seeing these put to use? And are there any that maybe you didn't really expect?
we had some interesting opportunities to talk with customers about where they would want to use these types of coatings. Elevators was a really interesting one. We had a lot of people like the perforated leaf. We had a customer come to us and say, "Hey, we're working on the exterior of a zoo. Let's work on this for a zoo." That would be super cool. We've got divider walls. We've got the entrances of buildings. They were like, this would really make sense as like the attention grabber of, hey, you're supposed to enter the building here. There was a lot of really great opportunities within all of the different segments that we were exploring. But I think the interior was the most unexpected about oh, hey, we'd love to use this as like the terrazzo on the ceiling or the elevator cabs, all of these different like little things. We were like, oh my gosh, this is such a great opportunity to put such a unique finish.
Yeah, agreed. Kiki, anything that had surprised you or that you found unexpected?
Yeah, I think a lot of what Brynn had mentioned were the projects that really were like almost surprising to us or light bulbs for us. But another one I'll add is the retaining walls in parking lots around parking structures, and applying the perforated leaf to that. And now instead of feeling like you're in a concrete jungle when you're parking, all of a sudden you feel like you have this relationship with nature and landscape all around you. So that was some really fun appearances to get to see that.
Excellent. Okay, so I mentioned earlier, I do want to talk about the durability, the longevity, the performance, the testing, because they're beautiful, and we don't want to see them in 5 years, 10 years not still be beautiful. So can you talk a little bit about what that looks like? What goes into ensuring that these products are going to perform and last?
So the wonderful thing about our Emulate program is that it's using our coatings that have been tried and true for a very long time. So all of the things that we are working with in here are from our Fluorapon and Weather XL and Polypremier systems. Those have been in the market for a long time, have been tested rigorously over and over and over again. So those we have a lot of confidence in. We also have a lot of confidence in the rotogravure print technology. And we've been partnering with these customers for a long time to create these types of patterns on metal. So what we did in this circumstance is we reimagined what's on the market right now. So we have total confidence that this is a great product line. We did do more testing beyond what we typically would do for a product line like this that we already know the product is great. We did do some additional testing with our test fence in Fort Myers, Florida, just to ensure that everything is all great and good to go. But it is our standard products, standard technologies, everything like that. So that's kind of the beauty of it, is we're not trying to convince anybody that the product is good, as well as convince them that the product or that the patterns are good as well.
Yeah, it's not new, right? I like that you said you reimagined, because it's been there for years. It's proven, it's tested. You're just kind of presenting it in a new way and a really cool way.
Yep, absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. So I know that everyone is just listening to this and they're not having a visual of what these look like. But I have been on the website. You have a great video out there that talks a little more about the process. There's a beautiful brochure because it's one thing to imagine what these things look like, but it's another thing to really see it and see the photos of where people have used it. And I'm just curious because you put in an incredible amount of research into this and testing and trials and once it's out there on the market, do you get to go out and see the finished product?
We are looking forward to seeing our first project here in a couple of weeks. I believe they'll be putting it up. So we are looking forward to that. We have run our first couple batches in full production. So it is in the works. It is out there and live in the market. And we're hoping that we hear more people looking forward to customizing any emulate patterns to work in their product lines.
Wow, that's exciting. Kiki,
It's
what are
very
you looking
cool.
forward to?
I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to not only see these in application, but also to see how architects and designers take kind of the inspiration and use it to emulate their style, and to be able to customize and see what they come up with as well, because we know that there's a lot of great creativity out there, and we're just excited to see how it's going to be used, as well as to see which patterns are become most trending, right? Because we've got that mix of very classic and very traditional with kind of like a pop or an unexpected, or even a maybe something you didn't know you needed, and now all of a sudden you see it and you're like, oh my gosh, we need that in our line of prints and patterns, or an architect says, oh my gosh, I need that to go on the exterior of this project that I'm working on. And just seeing over and over and tracking how these different patterns appear that way. We do, as Brynn has mentioned, as I've mentioned on a few different times that we've had the wonderful opportunity to chat with you, Karen, is a lot of trend research, a lot of consumer research, a lot of customer research, a voice of customer, really understanding where the market is going, not just for today, but for, next year, 5 years, 10 years down the line, and pairing our performance and our understanding of the durability of our products, but then also understanding the longevity of these prints and patterns that will have in the marketplace a lasting effect. It's just a really exciting opportunity to see how that is going to play out, and we'll continue to track that. So
Yes, and we will have you back on a regular basis because we want to know as well, and as do our listeners, where are things going, what's popular, and what's happening out there. So, Brynn and Kiki, I want to thank you so much for being here today and diving deeper into the different products and collections and colors and patterns, and it's been really, really exciting. And I want to encourage everyone, visit Sherwin-Williams directory on Metal Coffee Shop, visit Sherwin-Williams on your website. It is Coil Coatings, right?
Coil.sherwin.com.
Coil.sherwin.com.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, and check it out because there's some beautiful pictures. There's some, like I said, video, and you can really see what this collection can do. And emulate certainly is the right name because it really does look like nature. Thank you all for listening to this episode. We're glad that you are here, and we encourage you to please follow us on social media, subscribe so that you don't miss a future episode, and we will see you next time on MetalCast. Thanks.